Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is our very first masterclass that the Academy has offered online, and this is the first of our three-part series titled Marine Mammal Identification. And your esteemed teacher slash lecturer for today is our Senior Collections Manager of Ornithology and Mammalogy, Moe Flannery. Hi, Moe.
Good morning, afternoon,
Good morning,
evening.
Afternoon. Wherever you are, we have a greeting for you.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. So I was just saying this is the first in our three-part series, and we are recommending that people kind of watch those in order. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it would be best to watch them in order and to do the entire series if you can.
Okay, fantastic. And so everybody watching today, you are welcome and encouraged to ask Moe questions. To do that, you're going to go ahead and put them in the YouTube chat. And if you've never done that before, you'll have to register just very quickly, very easily through YouTube, but it'll just take a sec and then that'll allow you to participate. And so myself and my colleague Aria are going to be watching those questions backstage and passing them to Moe. And then she's going to answer those, I think the bulk of them at the end of each small section. Unless you see one that is particularly pertinent and needs to be addressed right away. Does that sound right also?
That sounds good.
Okay, great. And also if you have questions, anything happening with the stream itself, you're welcome to put those in chat as well and we'll address them. So for the moment, I am going to go ahead and get us started. So here is Moe's slides and yeah, I'll see you all at the break or in a moment or whatever, but enjoy the class and thank you, Moe.
Great, thanks, Laurel. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of the three sessions. So today we're going to talk about marine mammal identification. And in particular, I work with dead marine mammals. So a lot of the slideshow will be focused on identifying marine mammals when you can kind of stand near them on the beach and you can look at them closely and you can take pictures of them. There will be some live animal photos in here as well. But here at the California Academy of Sciences, we are part of the Marine Mammal Stranding Network. Let me get my slides going. And that is a group of people who work on marine mammals. And marine mammals are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which was enacted in 1972. So all marine mammals are protected, which means that you need special authorization to get close to them, to work on them, to collect parts from them, and to study them. And some marine mammals are also protected under the Endangered Species Act. And you see just a few listed here. So we also work under endangered species permits. So all of our activities are authorized by the National Marine Fisheries Service through a stranding agreement that they've issued to the California Academy of Sciences. And on large whales, we work very closely with the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, California, to work on large whale necropsies. So they have their authorization as well. And we're all authorized under the National Marine Fisheries Service ESA Endangered Species Permit. So our stranding response over the years at the Academy has been funded by several NOAA Prescott grants that we've received since 2008. And we're very grateful for that. That's what keeps our marine mammal stranding program going. So throughout this training, I will refer to some references that we have available online, and maybe Laurel and Aria can put in the general references link to the chat for you guys. And you'll see in that link, there are a lot of references that I'm not going to be using today, but these are great things that you can download, you can laminate them, you can take them out on the beaches with you, you can look at them on your computer for reference. But there's a good pinniped cheat sheet and a citation cheat sheet that I'll be referring to today. And then we have a new, fresh off the press, how to use iNaturalist to document marine mammals on the beaches. And then the next session of the masterclass, this Thursday at 10 o'clock, will be more in depth of how to use iNaturalist. So if you download the references, the good one or the most important one to download now is the pinniped cheat sheet. We're going to start there. So most of what I talk about today is going to focus on the Western US, San Francisco Bay Area, and California. in general, but some of these species are found in other places in the world. But here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we are extremely lucky in that we can see 6 different species of pinnipeds in our area. There's not another place in the world that I know of that you can see 6 different species. So we're at the southern range of the Steller sea lion, which is the animal right here. We're at the southern range of the northern fur seal. We're at the northern range of the Guadalupe fur seal. And of course, California sea lions, northern elephant seals, and harbor seals are seen in our area. So we're going to go into detail on how to identify those 6 species that you might see on the beaches. So we're going to start with the otariids, which are the eared seals. So one of the key characteristics of the otariids, as you can imagine, is the fact that they have ears. They have these ear pinna, which are the little flaps of ear, external ear that sticks out on the side of their heads, which is different from the phocids, which are the true seals. They do not have an ear flap or ear pinna. So in the otariids, one male mates with many females. He has kind of a group of females. There is pronounced sexual dimorphism in the species. That means that males are typically much larger than females, and they propel themselves in the water by using their foreflippers. So they have pretty large foreflippers for moving through the water. And their hind flippers can be rotated at the hips so that they can walk on land. Those are the key characteristics of otariids. So in the San Francisco Bay Area and along the West Coast, you can find 4 species of otariids. We have California sea lion, northern fur seal, Steller sea lion, and Guadalupe fur seal. So even though the fur seals have seal in their names, they are an eared seal. They are part of the otariid family. We're going to start with California sea lion because they are the most common pinniped species that we see along our coast. They're the most prevalent. They range from Vancouver, British Columbia, down to Baja California, Mexico. They breed in offshore islands. Their pups are born May, June, and July. Adult females can typically be about 6 feet long, and adult males are about 7.5 feet long. Females can weigh 240 pounds, and males can be up to 700 pounds. And they can be found here in the Bay Area all year long. So here's some typical California sea lions doing what they do. They range in fur color to a great degree. It can be honey colored to dark brown, and that's based on sex, molt, and individual variation. Some people like to think of them as having kind of a dog-like face. That'll make more sense as I move through the other species. But they have kind of a longer nose than the other species in the otariid family, and they do kind of look like a dog sitting there, sticking their noses up. Their bodies are slender with long necks, and the fur is coarse and stiff and grows towards the tail. And that's going to be important as we move through especially when we get to the fur seals. So their fur is very coarse and short, kind of like a close-cut carpet, and it only goes towards their tail. And you can see the differences in colors here, the darker brown male here, and the cream-colored female down there. And you can see the dog-like face here. This is an immature. So an immature male can often look like an adult female. So an adult female would look similar to this immature male, but that nice kind of dog-like face. And then here is the adult male. And the adult males have a sagittal crest, which I'll show you a little bit more. And there is quite a bit of sexual dimorphism in the face of an adult male and an adult female. So the foreflipper, which is the front flipper, is going to be a key indicator when we're talking about otariid species and pinniped species in general. And in particular, you want to look at the dorsal side of the flipper or the back side. So let me just explain dorsal versus ventral for you because it can be confusing, especially if you're not used to that type of scientific language. So the dorsal side of an animal, including humans, is the back, so our back side. And the ventral side is the front side or the stomach side. And this slide shows various animals with their dorsal side up. So if you're laying on the beach, a lot of the times you will maybe start with your dorsal side up so you can get a tan on your back. And then the ventral side is the opposite side. It's the belly side or the stomach side. And these animals have their ventral sides up and are showing us their belly. If you have an animal's ventral side up, you can sometimes actually determine the gender of that animal by taking photographs of the genital area, and then we can see if it's a male or a female with the ventral side up. That's not so easy when it's dorsal side up. In fact, it's impossible. So we're going to talk about the flippers, and when we talk about the flippers, we're going to talk about dorsal side and ventral side. So here is a dorsal view of a California sea lion flipper here. They have, like I said, fairly large flippers because they're front flippers because they're using them to propel underwater. And on the California sea lion, the dorsal side has fur that goes all the way down the foreflipper. Sorry, I'm using my pointer on the screen in front of me and not on the slide. So here you go. Here's the fur going down the dorsal side of the foreflipper. If we turned the flipper over, we would see that the palm of a California sea lion flipper is bare, just like the palm of our hands are bare. And they thus have a line of fur that ends kind of at the wrist. So it kind of makes a t-shirt line. And all otariids have a t-shirt line on the ventral side or the underside of their flipper. So that's one thing to keep in mind is they all have a line of fur that stops on the ventral side or the underside. It's the dorsal side that's really going to make a difference. So California sea lion flippers, foreflippers, oops, sorry about that. They are large and they do not have nails on their foreflippers. That is also going to be a key characteristic. And on their hind flippers, they do have nails. And you can see here that the toes are pretty much the same length. There's a tiny variation in length, but these hind flipper toes are very similar in length and they have nails. And here's just a picture of an adult male California sea lion with his beautiful sagittal crest that's very distinctive of adult males. And this is what makes that bump on the top of their head. In the skull, you can see this nice pronounced sagittal crest. So the young California sea lions do not have the sagittal crest. It might be starting a little bit. So it can be confusing. That's why sometimes they look a lot like the adult female. So moving on, we're going to talk about the other sea lion, the stellar sea lion. Stellar sea lions are another otariid species that's found in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're kind of at the lower end of their range. And there are two, I talked about endangered species early on. There are two distinct population segments of stellar sea lions. So that's different population groups found in different areas. The population found in Western Alaska and Japan is considered endangered under the Endangered Species Act. The population found from Eastern Alaska to California was listed on the endangered species as threatened, but they've since been removed from the endangered species list because the population has recovered. So that's a true species success story is the stellar sea lions recovering from the eastern distinct population segment. So that's the species that we primarily see here, is that the one that's been taken off the endangered species list. They are much bigger than California sea lions. Males can be up to 2,500 pounds and females can be up to 800 pounds. Again, they have that sexual dimorphism, or the difference in size between males and females. Males can be 11 feet, females are around 9.5 feet. They range from central California to the Bering Sea and along the Aleutian chain in Alaska through Japan, but the majority of them breed in the Gulf of Alaska, although there are small numbers of stellar sea lions that breed on Año Nuevo Island, here off the San Mateo coast, and the Farallon Islands, which are off of San Francisco. And pups are born from May through July, and we don't encounter pups as much as we see young California sea lions, but we can see them from May to October in our area. Stellar sea lion bodies also have that robust, coarse fur. Well, their bodies are robust and they have the coarse, stiff fur similar to what you see on the California sea lion. It only grows in one direction, and their fur is light colored to reddish brown above and chocolate colored below. So adult males have a very full furry chest, neck and chest. You can see that on this guy in the upper right hand corner. And they do not have a pronounced sagittal crest the way that you see in California sea lions. And that's kind of obvious on this head sticking out of the water down here. This is a big adult male, and you don't see that big bump on his head, which you would if it was a California sea lion. So some people can think of stellar sea lion heads as bear-like heads, just like I talked about California sea lions being dog-like faces. Stellar sea lions are more bear-like, and they are huge. I mean, look at this huge head compared to the ranger's foot and the ranger's hand, and those huge teeth. I mean, stellar sea lions are big, big animals, and you can really see that, and you can really kind of see that bear-like face. They just look more like bears than they look like dogs. And this little one up in the upper right corner is a pup, and one thing to be aware of is stellar sea lion pups can be about the same size as like a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old California sea lion. So if you do see one, beware, they can be similar in size. But one thing you'll notice about this little guy up in the upper corner is, look at how huge that front flipper is. So they're using that to propel in the water. But also in the stellar sea lion, it's much larger compared to their body size than the California sea lion. It's just a huge, massive animal, and it shows in the body. So just like the California sea lions, they have fur on the top of their flippers, the dorsal side of their foreflippers, and they do have nails on their hind flippers, and you can see those there. And their foreflippers extend all the way down their body to the sides of their ribs. And this picture up in the upper corner kind of really shows that bear-like face. That does look like a bear laying there in the sand. And the adult female, of course, is much smaller than the adult male. So here's a closer view of the stellar sea lion foreflippers. And you can see there are no nails on the front flipper, just like the other otariids. They do not have nails. And there are nails on the bottom, or on the hind flippers. And you remember the dorsal side has fur in the species, and the ventral side has fur that ends in a t-shirt line. Just a little reminder, because that is going to be important next. So now we're moving on to northern fur seals, which are a smaller otariid, but still an otariid. Northern fur seals are a pelagic species that ranges primarily offshore throughout the North Pacific Ocean. They breed in the Bering Sea and also along the Farallon Islands and the Channel Islands here in California. Pups are born from May to June, but we don't see a lot of adults in our area. We mostly only see young animals. And again, there is sexual dimorphism in this species, with adults weighing up to 600 pounds and 7 feet long adult males, and adult females can weigh up to 140 pounds and are about 5 feet long. So quite a difference in size. Their body shape is long and slender. They have really thick, beautiful, luxurious fur with a buffy undercoat, and they have to groom it to keep it waterproof. In fact, they were hunted for their fur almost to extinction early in the 1900s. So their lush fur kind of goes all over the place, which is different from the fur of a California sea lion or a Steller sea lion. Remember, I said the California sea lion and Steller sea lion have very rough, coarse fur that only goes in one direction. But the fur of a fur seal is very lush and kind of more like a plush carpet than that coarse, short carpet that I mentioned. Like you can think of the California sea lion and the Steller sea lion as like the texture of a doormat, although not exactly, but you know, that kind of rough texture, whereas the fur seals are kind of this beautiful plush fur, which when you see one, you understand why someone would have wanted that as a warm coat when you didn't have options like Gore-Tex and down and things. So just like the other otariids, they do have ears, and their ears are a little bit longer than the ears of the California sea lion and the Steller sea lion, but that can sometimes be hard to see. So their head is kind of shaped more like a football. It's short and it has a little down curved snout. This picture up here kind of shows that little short football face. Some people call them mousy looking. I just like to think of them as a football shaped head. And we primarily only see the young of this species in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's very rare to see anything larger, any adults or subadults. But you can see here we have had one subadult male on the beach before, and that's through working on collecting data and specimens for the museum. And the young northern fur seals are more likely to be seen here in the fall. So here's where your new knowledge of dorsal and ventral is going to be the most useful. So remember, the dorsal side is the back side, and the ventral side is the stomach side. So every otariid has a t-shirt line on the ventral side or the bottom, right? Because they have a bare wrist and or a bare palm, and they have a t-shirt line at the wrist. But only northern fur seals have that t-shirt line on the dorsal side of their flipper. So even if you have a really horribly decomposed carcass on the beach, if you have the flippers and you can see the fur and you can see that it's fur seal fur, and you have the dorsal side and there's a t-shirt line there, you can identify that as a northern fur seal. So the fur stops abruptly at the bend of the wrist. Let me show you a close-up view of that t-shirt line in the northern fur seal. Just like other otariids, their large foreflippers do not have any nails, and they have long, skinny hind flippers that do have nails in them. All right, so there's that t-shirt line. Keep that in mind. And it's on the dorsal side, right? The back side. Some people like to say the northern fur seal is wearing a t-shirt, which it shouldn't be wearing because it's from the north. I don't know, sometimes that works for people. Moving on to the southern version. So this is the Guadalupe Fur Seal, and they breed from Washington through Baja, or their range is Washington to Baja, Mexico. They breed on Guadalupe Island and the San Benito del Este in Mexico. And they have recently begun to extend their range further north up into Washington and Oregon, which may indicate that they're moving back into their historical range. They are classified as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, and there have been some records of them showing up in British Columbia, Canada. They're a small-eared seal. The adult whales may weigh about 400 pounds and are 7 feet long, and the females are about 110 pounds and 5 feet long. They're pretty petite, those females. Pups are born from May through July, and they spend about 9 months with their mothers, which is similar to California sea lions. California sea lion pups spend about 9 months with their mothers. So Guadalupe fur seal, similar to the northern fur seal, they have that really thick, luxurious coat, which was also part of them being hunted as well. And they have dark brown fur with buffy underparts. Their head is more like more long and pointed compared to the northern fur seal, which had a football-shaped head, kind of short and stout. The Guadalupe fur seal head is more pointed. And they have that long, pointy nose that sometimes looks like it's turned up. Here is a good view of that nose kind of turned up on the end, and they have longer ear pinnae too as well. And as you can just about guess, their foreflippers have fur that extends all the way down the flipper on the dorsal side. So this is the primary difference between a Guadalupe fur seal and a northern fur seal. So if you have a small fur seal on the beach, you know it's a fur seal because it has that really lush, thick fur. If you look at those foreflippers, look at the dorsal side. If it has fur, it's a Guadalupe fur seal on the dorsal side. Now remember, the northern fur seal has a t-shirt line on the dorsal side and the ventral side. The Guadalupe fur seal, the California sea lion, and the Steller sea lion all have fur on the dorsal side and a t-shirt line on the ventral side. So this fur really helps you only to identify a northern fur seal. If it has fur all the way down on the foreflipper and you don't know if it's a fur seal or a sea lion, you will not be able to determine whether it's a Guadalupe fur seal, a California sea lion, or a Steller sea lion. You can't eliminate those because of the fur on the top. You can only determine that what you have is a northern fur seal based on that t-shirt line on the dorsal side. Okay. Here again is the Guadalupe fur seal foreflipper. You can really see that fur that goes all the way down. No nails on the foreflipper, just like all the other otariids. And you can see those nice hind flippers with the equally length toes and some nails on the hind flipper. Well, I might answer a couple questions about otariids. I see two in here before I move on to the next family of pinnipeds. So from Mega Crazy Girl, is fur color variation dependent on location, or is it more like an individual thing? So in otariids, seals, or the fur seals and the sea lions, it is more individual variation in each individual sea lion and fur seal. In the phocids, which I'll talk about next, sometimes it can be dependent on location, and I'll talk more about that when I get to one slide. And from Lisa, what causes the sagittal crest to form? The sagittal crest is just part of the physiology of California sea lions, and it's part of sexual selection. So it's a trait that's been passed along through the years for sexual selection. So how that works is over the years, the males with the larger crest are the ones that get to mate with the females, and then they pass on that large bony crest. But basically, it's just a natural outgrowth of bone in the top of the skull. And Lisa also asked, are the nails on the stellar sea lion vestigial? The nails on all of the sea lions and fur seals on their hind flippers, they are useful in that they can use them to like scratch themselves on their bodies and things. Okay, so let's move on to the next family of pinnipeds, and that is the phosid family. So phosids are known as the true seals. They do not have ear flaps, and that's one of the primary ways of identifying them. As you can see in the top photo, there's a little hole where the ear is, but there's no flap of skin sticking off of the ear. When you first look at a carcass on the beach, you're going to want to, the first thing you're going to do is look to see if there are ear flaps. Because if you have an ear flap, you know you're looking at an otariid. And if you don't, you know you're looking at a phosid. This family has varying degrees of sexual dimorphism. In this bottom picture, you can see an adult male northern elephant seal with an adult female, a huge difference in size in that particular species. But the harbor seals, which is the other species in this family, there's no sexual dimorphism between males and females. They have short muzzles for the most part and short fur, and their foreflippers and their hind flippers are furred on both the top and the bottom. And we'll get into more details on that in a minute. But remember, the otariids had a bare palm on the bottom of their foreflippers. And the phosids, they can't rotate their back legs the way that, or their hind flippers, the way that otariids can. They kind of move along the land with an undulating motion, kind of like an inchworm, but much bigger. So the two species that we see along the California coast and up north of here too are harbor seal and northern elephant seal. These seals haul out close to water on sandy beaches, sandbars, and low rocky marine terraces. They don't climb up on elevated rocks the way that the otariids can climb up on the rocks. And you can see, like at low tide, they'll haul out just to dry out and rest. So we'll start with the harbor seal, because the harbor seal is one of the more common that you see around. They includes the entire northern hemisphere. Pups in the San Francisco Bay Area are born from February to May in coastal rookeries, which is an area where moms and pups hang out. And you should always keep your distance from a coastal rookery so that you don't disturb the moms and the pups. As I said, there is very little sexual dimorphism in this species. So if you have a carcass on the beach, you're not going to be able to tell a male from a female just based on the size. At birth, they can weigh about 24 pounds, but then at adulthood, they can be up to 285 pounds. And right, that's the males and the females because they're the same size, and they can be about 5 to 6 feet in length. And the harbor seals that are in Europe are the same species as the harbor seals that we have here on the West Coast and the East Coast of the United States. So if you're traveling and you see harbor seals, your ID skills will help. They have their bodies are short and round, and they have blunt, square noses. They're kind of like little sausages on the beaches. They have varying coloration, including black with gray spots, gray with black spots, tan with dark spots, and even a few that are red. And some of the ones that are red have turned red from the iron that's in the environment around them. So spots are a key characteristic that we use in identifying this species, but don't assume that you're looking at a harbor seal if you have a carcass on the beach that has spots. You want to look for some other characteristics too, because sometimes there can be other species that have some scars or have variation in their coat, in their pelage, or have a disease of some kind that might look like spots where some of the fur has come off. So here you can really see the short foreflippers of the harbor seal. So the phocids, when they're swimming underwater, they don't use these little tiny foreflippers. That would not get them anywhere. They swim using their hind flippers underwater. That's how they propel. And these foreflippers are just very small. So harbor seal foreflippers, they are furred on both sides, and you can see that they have nails on those foreflippers. And they do use those nails just to scratch, but they can only reach a little part of their body because their foreflippers are so short. And you can see that nice rounded face of the harbor seal. So on their hind flippers, the two outer digits of their hind flippers are longer than the inner digits, and that makes kind of a V shape in the harbor seal. And you can see on the harbor seal hind flipper that there are nails there, and that'll be important when we get to the northern elephant seal. Here's a closer view of that short paddle-like flipper in the front and the V shape of those hind flippers. Remember, the otariid toes were all kind of one length at the end, so it went straight across, and you can really see the difference in the digits. So now we're going to move on to northern elephant seal. So northern elephant seals are found in the eastern and central North Pacific, and they primarily breed from Guadalupe Island in Baja California, Mexico, northward, as far north as Año Nuevo Island here off the San Mateo coast. But there's some breeding in Point Reyes National Seashore, and more recently, there have been some colonies starting up in Mendocino County, California, and Vancouver, British Columbia, so they may be extending their breeding territories. Northern elephant seals have extreme sexual dimorphism, with adult male bodies can be about 10 to 13 feet. They're big animals, and they can weigh up to 4,400 pounds. And adult females typically measure up to 10 feet, and they're about 1,300 pounds. This species was hunted almost to extinction for their blubber, which was used for oil for lamps and things. And they've made a remarkable comeback, originating from less than 100 individuals at the turn of the 20th century. Now there are over 200,000 northern elephant seals out there. So when I talked about the nose and the mouth of a harbor seal, it was kind of on the same plane together, making it a rounded face. On the elephant seal, the rostrum, or the nose part, hangs over the mouth in all ages, but to lesser extent in younger animals. Sexually mature males have this huge proboscis. That's what gives them the name elephant seal. And you can see that here in the photo on the left. But even in the younger animals and the adult females, you can see that the nose kind of sticks out a little bit over the mouth. They have a gray to brownish coloration with no markings on their fur, so no spots at all. New pups are born with a thick black coat. This one in the lower right is called a black coat. That's a pup. Their elephant seal fur is coarse and stiff and grows towards the tail, the same as harbor seal fur is short and coarse and thick. Same as the Steller sea lion, California sea lion. They all have short, coarse hair. And adult males have that big nose, and then they also have a large cracked chest plate, and that comes from the two adult males fighting, or many adult males fighting with each other for leadership over the coven of females. So one adult male will mate with many females. Here you can see the adult male's big proboscis, his big nose, and you can really see that scarred chest plate. So this guy in the upper right-hand corner has been in a lot of fights in his lifetime. So on the hind flipper of the northern elephant seal, Again, the outer digits are much longer than the inner digits, and this makes an extreme V shape in this species. And they too have those small paddle-like foreflippers, and their nails are a little bit longer than the nails that you see on harbor seal. And both the foreflippers and the hind flippers in this species, just like in the harbor seal, they have fur on the bottom or the ventral side and on the top or the dorsal side. And on this flipper picture, you can really see that extreme V shape. And the other thing of note is their hind flippers do not have nails. So if you have V-shaped hind flippers with no nails, you have a northern elephant seal. If you have slightly V-shaped hind flippers with nails and you have nothing else, you have a harbor seal. But again, you always want to find many characteristics to help you. So this would be a good place to answer any other questions that have come up about pinnipeds, because we're about to move to cetaceans. But here's just when you're out on the beach, you want to have many characteristics to add to your identification. So you want to use the overall size, you want to use the flipper shape and size, the fur type and color that I've been talking about, the head shape, the skull shape. You can learn more about teeth in some other trainings that we have. You want to think about the time of year, and if you're really sometimes you can use other bones. But you want to take all these characteristics into consideration when you're determining species identification. And sometimes it can be very challenging. We call them the hell months in San Francisco Bay Area. From May to July, we can get pup stellar sea lions, 1-year-old and pup California sea lions, Guadalupe fur seals, and sometimes a northern fur seal. So it can be very challenging when there are lots of young animals coming through in the summertime. Now we'll answer the pinniped questions. Okay, let me see. Sally Swan asked, can you say something about the sound each makes? Actually, that's funny because I have taught my 2-year-old niece, when you do animal sounds, we do California sea lion sounds. So if you're down in Santa Cruz or up at Doran Beach or at Pier 39 in San Francisco, you'll hear this barking sound, arr, 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 arr. That's the sound of the California sea lion. Stellar sea lions do kind of more a low growl, which I am not good at. And the only sounds I've ever heard northern elephant seals make are high-pitched, kind of whiny sounds of pups that have been in rehabilitation at the Marine Mammal Center or at the rookery. If you take a guided tour of the Año Nuevo northern elephant seal rookery, you can hear them making their sounds. But I'm not very good at repeating the elephant seal sounds either. It's just a little grating on your nerves when you have pups in rehabilitation and they're making lots of noise. All right. We can move on to cetaceans. There's another question. Lisa Whalen says, is the seasonality chart just for California or would it apply to Washington as well? So she's looking at, in our resources page that I directed you to early on, we have a pinniped seasonality chart, which tells us when animals are in the area during the year and when their breeding season is. So the breeding season would be the same for those species, whether you're in California or Washington, but the seasonality, the time of year when you would see them in Washington could be different than the time of year that we would see them here in California. So for instance, Guadalupe fur seals that breed off the islands in Mexico and Southern California make their way up through California and then up to Washington and Oregon. So you would be seeing them a little bit later in Washington. You may be able to reach out to a local stranding organization in your area to find out more specifics about the species in your area too. Okay. So cetaceans, I don't really have time. I don't have time to take you through all the possible cetaceans you can see along the West Coast, and there are a lot of them. So we're just gonna focus on a few. So there are actually about 90 species of whales, dolphins, and porpoises throughout the world. And most species prefer the colder waters of the northern and southern hemisphere. I'm going to take a little sip while you gaze at these beautiful NOAA fisheries images. NOAA Fisheries has a great web page where it's called, I just do NOAA Species Directory, and you can pick any marine mammal species, and they have these beautiful illustrations and tons of information about each species. So that is a good place to go to if you want more information. So whales are divided into two orders, the mysticetes or the baleen whales. And the two that I'm showing here are a gray whale and a humpback whale. And the odontocetes, which are the toothed whale. And here we have a hubs-beaked whale, common, I can only think of the scientific name right now. Long-beaked common dolphin, there we go. The Dall's porpoise and a striped dolphin. So those are just a few. Since we don't have time to teach you how to identify all the species along the coast, what do you do if you see a large dead whale on the beach? Well, the most important thing for you to do is to call the nearest stranding network organization as soon as you can to report it to them. And I'll have some reporting information later on in the presentation. But basically, you're going to want to document where it is, how big it is, if you can estimate the size. There are lots of resources that you can look at for species, or you can do one of our advanced training modules. I'll talk about those too later and learn more about identifying large whale species. But if you can do size and specific location and whether it's in the surf or out of the surf, sometimes you can tell if they're male or female just by looking at them. This is a male gray whale. This is a humpback whale up here in the upper right corner. And then this is a fin whale. That's all I'm going to say about large whales. Call somebody else, post a picture on iNaturalist. People will help you identify it. But for data collection and large whales, it's very important for a stranding network organization or two to get out and do a necropsy to determine the cause of death. So what I am going to talk about are how to determine a dolphin from a porpoise. So you can download the cetacean cheat sheets. There are 4 pages. So there's 2 pages on large cetaceans and then 2 pages on small cetaceans. And we're going to go over how to identify a dolphin from a porpoise, because that's most commonly what you're going to see stranded in the beaches, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this will help, the cheat sheets will help you. So we're going to start with harbor porpoise. Harbor porpoises are the most common small cetaceans seen in San Francisco Bay Area. They're all over the world, north temperate and subarctic coastal and offshore waters. And they are very small. They're about 5 to 5.5 feet long as adults, and they weigh 135 to 170 pounds. Again, they're very similar in size, males and females. And harbor porpoises have actually made a comeback into San Francisco Bay in recent years. They had been gone from the bay for many, many years, and they've now started coming back as the bay has become cleaner and more hospitable for them, providing them more food and things. So there's a group at the Marine Mammal Center called the Cetacean Field Research Team. They're out on Golden Gate Bridge taking photos of harbor porpoises as they come in and out of San Francisco Bay. Oh, they take photos of any cetacean that's found in the bay. but they are keeping a catalog of the harbor porpoises and the bottlenose dolphins and the gray whales and the humpback whales that come into the bay. So if you're out on the bay, keep your distance, but try and get good photos, and you can submit those to the Marine Mammal Center's Cetacean Field Research Team, and they can document it as a sighting, and then hopefully they can identify it to an individual. So harbor porpoises tend to be fairly secretive. You won't really see much more than this. This photo with the little calf sticking its head out of the water is pretty unique. That was a lucky shot. They got to see that head, but mostly you just see their backs as they surface and breathe and then go back down. And they have a small triangular dorsal fin, and you can really see that in the photo on the left. And that's like the typical view of a harbor porpoise. They have counter shading, which means that they're lighter on the bottom and darker on the dorsal side. So their ventral side is light and their dorsal side is dark. A lot of species have counter shading. Fin whales, the dorsal side is dark and the ventral side is light. Penguins, the dorsal side, if they're swimming, their dorsal side, their backs are dark and their stomachs are light. And that is to avoid predators from down below. So a predator from down below looking up in the water would see light colored, which is what the water looks like with the sun shining down on it, or the light coming in from the world. It blends in more if you're light on the bottom. If they were dark on the bottom, they would show up more for predators. So this photo on the left really shows that counter shading. Harbor porpoises have a rounded snout and they don't have a pronounced beak. So their head is just kind of rounded and goes all the way down from the head to the tip of the nose. And you can kind of see inside their mouth some tiny spade-shaped teeth. And we'll talk much more about the teeth. Here's a jaw, a skull, showing those spade-shaped teeth. And this is going to be the way that you tell porpoises from dolphins. And in our area, there are only two porpoises, the harbor porpoise and the Dall's porpoise. And they both have these kind of spade-shaped teeth. So the teeth are flattened and they look kind of like a paddle on both the upper and the lower jaw. Cetaceans are called homodonts. All of their teeth look exactly the same, whereas pinnipeds are heterodonts. They have different teeth, different types of teeth, similar to what we have. They have incisors and canines and post canines, which would be the equivalent of our molars. But in cetaceans, they're all exactly the same. So in a porpoise, you would see these spade-shaped teeth. Here's a close-up of those spade-shaped teeth. And you can really see that it kind of flares at the tip and they're flat and broad at the base. So if spade or spatula or paddle, whatever works best for you, that's the way to remember porpoise teeth. So the other small toothed cetacean that we find in the San Francisco Bay Area is the bottlenose dolphin. Their population is growing quickly in our area and has been expanding northward. They're found throughout the world in temperate and tropical waters. For a small cetacean, they can actually be quite large. Adults can get up to 13 feet long, but they range in size from 6 feet to 13 feet, and they can weigh 300 to 1,400 pounds. So they're much larger as adults than a harbor porpoise. However, one thing to note is that calf bottlenose dolphins are about the size of an adult harbor porpoise. Bottlenose dolphins have a pronounced beak. You can see pointing out Flipper, the TV series, was a bottlenose dolphin. And they are only slightly counter shaded. So they do have that light counter shading underneath. This one's a little bit pinkish, but they're usually light colored underneath and gray or more gray on top. And here in the photo of this young calf on the left, you can really see that counter shading, the dark dorsal side and the lighter ventral side, and you can really see that pronounced beak of the bottlenose dolphin. The carcass on the right, she's lost most of her skin, so you can't tell color, but based on the beak and the size, this one was, I think she was 9 feet long and like 300 pounds, and the shape of the dorsal fin, you can tell it's a bottlenose dolphin. Of course, if we get into the mouth, we can really tell that it's a dolphin, and that's because dolphin teeth are pointed or conical shaped. So all species of dolphins have these conical shaped teeth in the upper and lower jaw. Again, they're homodonts too, so all their teeth are exactly the same. But these are distinctly different from the spatula or the spade shaped or the paddle shaped teeth of the porpoises. So if you have an animal on the beach and all you can see are teeth, take good pictures of the teeth. You can tell if it's a dolphin or a porpoise. The class on Thursday on iNaturalist is going to go into detail about the best photos for you to take. But if you want to learn more about going more in depth about marine mammal identification, things I wasn't able to touch on today in our short period of time together, we do have an advanced marine mammal identification course. This is a learn at your own pace series of 7 modules. There's a great intro, there's a whole data collection slide course which talks about all the data that we collect, how we measure them, how we sex them, and all those data are submitted to the National Marine Fisheries Service in their national database. It goes more in depth into the eared seals and the true seals, looking more at their skulls. There's some great 3D skulls from Sketchfab from the Academy collection that you can manipulate and play around with in the advanced identification course. There's also a section on mustelids, which are the river otter and the sea otter, which are also species that we can find here along the west coast of the US. Southern sea otters really only in the southern part of California from San Mateo County to Point Conception, and northern sea otters up north in the Washington area. And then it goes into the baleen whales, so you'll learn how to identify those large whales that you may find live and dead, and then toothed whales as well. And then you can also continue to learn through this series. On Thursday, we'll have the how to use iNaturalist to document marine mammals. So like I said, it'll focus on what photos to take and how to set up projects in iNaturalist. And then next Tuesday, you don't want to miss Sleuthing with Sue. Sue is our main stranding coordinator here at the California Academy of Sciences. She is amazing at identifying dead animals on the beaches, live animals too, but she's really good at identifying dead animals. And she will take you through some interesting case studies to really figure out what the species is from photos, some of which were taken by Stranding Network folks and some of which she found on iNaturalist. So the idea of this masterclass is that we need more eyes and ears out on the beaches looking for all sorts of species, and that's what you'll learn in iNaturalist. You can upload photos of any species that you see along the coast, from nudibranchs to large whales. But having people out on the beaches taking photos and documenting them and reporting the animals that they see help us build our database of biodiversity along the California coast. And this is all part of an initiative to really help California thrive and grow and conserve the unique biodiversity of our state here in California, but also along the entire West Coast. So here are some numbers that you can use to call depending on what you're seeing on the beaches. And this is also in the references section and with a link to the reporting that you can download and keep on your phone or enter it into your phone. there's a West Coast Marine Mammal Stranding Hotline, entangled whales, or entangled marine mammals too. If you see a pinniped with strapping around its neck or something, you can report those. A live distressed animal can be reported to the Marine Mammal Center. And of course, dead marine mammals can be reported to us at the California Academy of Sciences. Live whale sightings, again, I talked about the cetacean field research team at the Marine Mammal Center. And then iNaturalists would really benefit from posting of all these sightings to document the species along the coast. So throughout all of this, we've built all of this training and documentation with the help of a lot of people. And of course, I have lots of acknowledgements that are all posted here. And thanks to everyone who's contributed over the years. And the funding specifically for this project and this training was provided by a Prescott grant this year awarded to the Academy, and also from some private donations to the California Academy of Sciences for our Thriving California and Stranded Marine Mammal Network. And I will answer some more questions, but thank you all for your time this morning. And I'll look and see what we have in the chat. But thank you and don't forget to come back to the other two series, and they will all be available on YouTube after. I see one question, Laurel.
Yep, you have one question right at the moment. Other people are still welcome to try to get those in before we wrap up. But this one's from Sally, who asked, do both porpoise and dolphins like to ride waves? We have some riding waves in Mendocino Bay sometimes.
They do. I would say that's more of a dolphin behavior, but porpoises will do it because harbor porpoises are a little more, like I said, shy. They kind of keep to themselves a little bit more. They tend to move away from boats and things more than go towards them. But bottlenose dolphins and other dolphins, especially like common dolphins and striped dolphins and Pacific white-sided dolphins, if you're out in the sea on a whale watching trip, a lot of the times you see tons of those dolphins swimming alongside the boat and riding the waves and in the wake of the boat. So they're fun.
Oh, and is there a story for you on how you got particularly interested in marine mammals in the first place?
Is there a story? Well, I've always been interested in marine biology, and I wanted to be a seabird biologist. And so when I first started in ornithology, I did several internships, one in Maine for the Puffin Project, which was island-based, and then one in Alaska on St. Luzaria Island for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And for that summer, we had to do boat surveys around the island, and I couldn't do it. I got so seasick. Like, even just on this small boat around the island, we would drop the anchor and I'd be like, put me back on land. I can't do these surveys. So I realized that I need to be a marine biologist where the animals come to me. And so that's how I ended up working more with dead stranded marine mammals. And it's every time an animal washes up on the beach, it's a unique opportunity to learn more about a species that you really can't get close to. Number one, because they're protected, but number two, like large cetaceans spend so much of their time at sea, it's difficult to study them. So when a large whale washes up on the beach, we want to learn as much as we can about that animal from that carcass that washes up. So they have to come to me. I don't even go out on whale watching trips, even though I would love to. I'd love to see them live. I just can't handle it, no matter how many drugs I take.
So you make up for it by being among the first responders when they do come on land.
That's right. That's right. Here it is. It comes right up to my doorstep.
Yeah. We do have a couple more questions. I'll read this one from Christina, who asks, if ventral surface of CSLI is too scavenged, standard length indicates adult, one should not use absence of sagittal crest to ID as a female, correct? Any other indicators of sex?
That's right. So you don't want to use absence of anything to identify an animal generally, because it may be something that's just missing, not actually not supposed to be there. But if you have looked at a lot of sea lions, you can look at the teeth. And for those of us who've looked at a lot of skulls, we can tell an adult female teeth based on the size of the canine teeth compared to a subadult male. But in that case, as someone collecting data, it's better to call it unknown than to take a guess at the gender. So for scientific accuracy, we try and be conservative if we don't have the information in front of us. But good question.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I have this last one from Connie, who asks, do only harbor seals lay on their side like a banana, or do other pinnipeds do that too? And also, why do they do that?
So harbor seals, yeah, they pretty much, elephant seals will lay out on the beach and just sprawl out. But harbor seals, yeah, are the only ones that kind of, I don't think an elephant seal could, well, maybe in a female or a young male could lay on their side like that. But the adult males, they're just too huge to do that. I had a quick shot in there. I didn't talk about it, and this wasn't on land, it was in the water, but otariids will do something, especially the fur seals will do something called jug handling. And that's where they put their front flipper up and their back flipper up, and I don't know how to do it. It makes like I can't even do it. Makes like a jug. They're like reaching out to each other, sticking out of the water. And they do that to thermoregulate. So to like I think it's to warm up their flippers outside of the water. And harbor seals do the kind of banana laying on the ground, just to rest and to kind of be alert. And that's, I guess, a comfortable position for them. Okay. But yeah, it's fun to drive by or stop at a harbor seal workery and keep your distance and watch them all laying there in their weird position.
Yeah, that's
they do look like little cigars or hot dogs.
Right. So, but I guess it's reassuring that our scientific hypothesis goes beyond just that they're trying to be cute. Like it seems like there's actual other benefits involved. Yeah. All right. I mean, kind of disappointing, but also, yeah.
Well, they probably are trying to be cute too.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
With those little round faces and those big eyes.
Right. Okay, so that's the end of our questions. So I'll do some quick housekeeping, which is just to say that the chat will close when we're no longer live. But if you have a question that you're still kind of mulling over that you haven't asked yet, you can go ahead and throw that in the comment section later, and we'll work with Moe to reply to those. So that'll be those are the permanent comments below the video itself. So feel free to use that. And then we're also going to add the links to all the resources that Moe provided during this presentation there, so that those will live permanently below as well. And then last thing, as Moe said, please come back and join us Thursday, November 4th for part 2 of the series, which will be using iNaturalist to document marine mammals. And that's taught by Dr. Rebecca Johnson and Allison Young, who are co-directors of our Center for Biodiversity and Community Science. So should be another really good one. Moe, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you to all the viewers who did. This was really the first time we've tried to do slightly more in-depth substantive programming. So we're really happy to have you with us. And yeah, thanks very much. We'll see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Moe. Bye-bye.